All right, this is me, and today I'm going to go over why the Brony community majorly sucks. Ho ho ho, there's no kind of about this one. There is no kind of about this one, because they are so awful that I think majorly needs to be explained. And hopefully this video will serve as a PSA to the people who consider joining this group of people and let them know what they're going to be probably in for. And I'm going to preface this by saying not all bronies are like this. I have no issues with the bronies that are subbed to me on YouTube. I have no issues with some of the bronies I know on Steam. But as a whole, my goodness, this, especially on Fimfiction, this fandom just blows. And I think an article which unfortunately I can't find, I've tried, believe me, I saw it once before, I just could not relocate it, said it very well. Not all bronies are like this, but enough of them are. And I think that applies very accurately to this situation, and that's why I need to make this video. So, I first learned about the show in like 2012, and I watched it, I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad. And at the time I was dealing with a lot of shit. Like, I was dealing with parents who were very pushy and controlling and trying to pull strings to get what they wanted. Like, one time they freaking actually went so far as to threaten to pull college funding when they insisted on coming to visit after I made it very clear, I don't want you to come. And I didn't let them in because of that. Because, I mean, after all, I told you I don't want you here. And you came anyway, that's your problem, not mine. And everyone freaking is always like, oh, well, they paid for your college fund. You can't criticize them. Yeah, I can if they're going to use that as an excuse to try to manipulate every aspect of my life. And over small shit, too. Not like, oh, I'm not going to classes and I'm not even doing my schoolwork. Then I can understand where someone wouldn't want to pay for someone's college education. That makes sense. I suppose that's a thing for another video. I was also dealing with a toxic relationship and breakup. I had no friends to speak of, no one to talk to about this. Very depressed, very alone, dealing with ostracization and exclusion in my college campus, just a whole bunch of shit. And it wasn't the beginning of it either. It was just stuff that I had dealt with on and off for years with no allies. So yeah, obviously it was in a pretty rough spot and I needed to do something about it. So I thought, I've had these story ideas on back burner for years now. Maybe I should incorporate the stuff I've dealt with into the stories themselves so that I could get some understanding, emotional support. Maybe I could get some allies too if people see just how messed up the situation I was in was. And even if not, like, at least I could vent about it. And I thought of a place to post them, and I'm like, the Brony Fandom seems like it might be a good spot to post these stories. Their moniker is Love and Tolerate. The show is literally about friendship and teaches friendship morals. So, the fandom should be pretty wholesome, I would think. There was also the fact that a lot of them were socially awkward. They'd probably been excluded. They've probably dealt with a lot of the stuff I've dealt with, being ostracized because you're different, being excluded, not having many friends. So they should be able to sympathize and empathize on a level that most other people couldn't, and give me some much needed emotional support, maybe some friends, and even if not, allow me a place where I could vent without judgment. Oh boy. But do you really think that's what ended up happening? I'm going to give you the short answer. Would I be making a long video saying the fandom majorly sucks if it was what happened? I don't think so. Homie, don't play that. But yeah, I posted the stories to Fimfiction. Sorry, Fimfiction. I don't know why I'd ever corrupt that intentionally like that. Posted it to Fimfiction, which is basically an MLP fanfiction sharing site, in 2015. And they went live, and immediately they started being inundated by dislikes. And this really was angering and disappointing. It was angering because I put my stories into territory where it's like, you ever see those YouTube videos where there's so many dislikes that you just click off of it immediately because this video probably is not that good? That's the territory these people were pushing the story into. And I'm not saying you have to love the story. If you don't want to read it, that's your choice. But what made me mad is that all of them felt compelled to go above and beyond and actually destroy the rating of the story. And they didn't even leave any comments to explain to me why they were doing this so I could see where this is coming from and maybe do something about it. It's like, how am I supposed to know what your problem with it is if you won't even say what it is? And it's like, I worked so hard on this. I put hours into each read through, each edit, whatever, before posting. I think it's not too much to ask to get some understanding as to why you don't like it. It was also disappointing too, because it's like, you're rejecting me. I was going to this place that was supposed to be a safe place to vent about what I dealt with and get some understanding, and they basically started rejecting me. But you know what? Maybe I was jumping the gun. Maybe I was being too unfair to them. Maybe they just didn't know what these stories meant to me. Maybe they just didn't understand how inconsiderate what they were doing was by dislike bombing something that they didn't like and whatever, you know. So what I did was I basically said in the story notes, hey, listen, I want to understand why this is being disliked. Can you please leave feedback and explain yourself if you must leave a dislike? Not really that unreasonable. And, well, do you think they listened to that? No. Almost all of them ignored it and basically just kept on dislike bombing, kept on dogpiling. And I'm going to bring up this point right now. It's not like I could move past it, as I guarantee some people are going to say, because it's not like a YouTube video that you make that's a stinker. You know, you publish a YouTube video that's a stinker and people dislike it. If you publish the next video, it's kind of unconnected. If it's a good video, it's not like the hate trails over to that. But with a story, every time I published a new chapter, a new crop of dislikes would come in because people would read the original chapter that they didn't like and do the same shit they'd always been doing. So it's not like I could move past it. It's like, you know, a YouTube video that you post that people don't like, it's like a cut that you put a Band-Aid on and then you just move on. But this one, someone kept ripping the damn Band-Aid right back off every single time I tried to get the cut to heal, so I could never actually heal from the constant rejection I was getting. And it just, of course, nobody actually took even 5 seconds to say, I mean, a couple people did, but like almost no one actually had the common courtesy to do that. And even the ones who did, by their own admission, literally said, I'm not someone who hated. So it's sort of like, well, I don't understand where the haters are coming from. And at this point, I was kind of getting pretty fed up with it already. Like, it's sort of like, okay, I've dealt with rejection, I've dealt with exclusion, I've dealt with all this shit my entire life. And I put a bunch of time and effort into this. I put myself out there, make myself vulnerable. And a group of people that should understand where I'm coming from is basically shitting on me and perpetuating the same crap that I was dealing with my whole life. I was not happy about that. So yeah, I mean, admittedly, at this point, I probably started getting a little bit condescending to them. Well, I don't know if I got to condescendingville yet, but yeah, I eventually got there. But I think what I did next was try to explain how their dislikes really didn't benefit anybody. You know, if you're going to do this, at least have the courtesy to leave a comment, because just disliking and moving on doesn't really accomplish anything. And what do you think they did? Do you think they actually listened to me? No. Kept on vote bombing the stories, kept on ignoring what I was dealing with. So finally, I said, you know, maybe they just don't understand how personal these stories are to me, how much they mean, and how much what they're doing is actually hurting me. So what I ended up doing was I posted in the beginning of the author's notes, hey, these stories are very personal to me, and what you're doing is actually hurting me. They're a story about my experience with autism, how I've been excluded, left out, and just kind of going over like what I've dealt with, and gave them the whole backstory. And, well, yeah. Do you think that any sympathy actually came? No. You know what ended up happening, actually? Basically, these little shits doubled down on their hate. I remember I got 4 new views, or 10 new views, and 4 new fucking dislikes. So this is going from they don't know what they're doing to they do know what they're doing, and they don't give a shit. And yeah, I made it, and I was a little bit condescending, but at this point, I was just fucking tired of it. Like, this was the culmination of years of this shit that I dealt with in my life. And you know, it's like, enough is enough. How much of this crap am I going to have to put up with? I deserve better than this. I deserve better than to be treated like I don't matter, to have people basically ignoring what I'm saying I want them to do, when it's not that hard for them to just not think of themselves for 2 seconds and do it, for fuck's sake. I mean, geez, how hard is it to not dislike a damn story and just, you know, click off the story and go to a new one? That's really all I wanted them to do, is just not go take that extra step, and they couldn't help themselves. Or if they really did hate the story that much, leave a comment explaining why. I mean, it would take a small fraction of the time it'd take me to write the one chapter of the story, let alone the whole thing. It's not too much to ask, and they weren't doing it. They were basically just ignoring me and saying F you. It was like basic respect and common courtesy were too much for them to muster. So yeah, I mean, understandably, I was getting pretty pissed off at them. Like, come on, after years of being excluded, treated like crap, and having people shit on you, especially when you're trying to open up about how much you've been hurt in the past, and people use it as a springboard to perpetuate the same bullshit against you instead of just listening, you'd be fucking pissed too. Don't say you wouldn't be. Everyone deserves to be treated better than that. So at this point, I think I kind of pulled the description and I kind of stopped writing for a couple of years. You know, I was rewriting it, trying to figure out what I could do to change things. And then I just hit a wall. I couldn't continue because I'm like, why am I doing this? You know, what am I going to get out of this? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Am I finally going to get that acceptance and understanding I've craved so long? No, of course not. So I just stopped for a while. And yeah, I mean, a couple years later, I finally picked it up again. So basically what I did was I decided I'm going to reboot this story. You know, there was one guy who did comment about, who wasn't the hater. I think I mentioned him briefly earlier. He commented what he didn't like about the story. And I'm like, okay, fine. You know, I'll edit the story based on his suggestions. So don't fucking say I don't take criticism, because that's basically the exact opposite of not taking criticism and taking it and actually adjusting your story based on it. That is accepting criticism. And I changed a few things. One of his complaints was that the main character talked to themselves. Looking back, that could be seen as pretty inconsiderate because the main character has autism, and people with autism do talk to themselves. Like, so what am I supposed to do? Lie about what people with autism do to make people feel comfortable? But whatever. He didn't know that at the time, so I can't really blame him 100%. Because, I mean, if he didn't know that the main character had autism, how's he supposed to know that's what I'm trying to emulate? But he said it was like weird, like he's a supervillain for talking to himself, so I made him think to himself. I also made the main character more likable, because one of his complaints was the main character's not likable. Now, I really think that was sort of missing the whole point of things, because, yeah, the main character might not have had the most likable traits, but, like, he was treated poorly by a lot of people. He had friends that constantly made plans but didn't include him. He had parents that were pushy, and I tried to show that, and it's like people were just seeing the fact that he was not happy with the people who were treating him poorly and being less than ideal with them sometimes, and actually seeing where it came from. I think lack of cause and effect is definitely a big problem in this fandom, because, I mean, you'll see this later on. But whatever, I decided, how can I make this main character more likable? What if he comes and stops the school bully from harassing someone who's down and out, which is something I would do. Like, I would definitely do something about someone who's being bullied by people, because I know what it's like to be in that situation. I've been there. I understand how much it sucks, and I understand how much an ally would help, even if it doesn't solve the problem. At least it lets you know you're not alone. So yeah, I decided he's going to come in and he's going to stop people bullying Limestone Pie, and it would have been revealed later that saved her life. Like, she was going to basically go home and kill herself, because that was just the final straw that broke the camel's back, or it would have been had no one stepped in. And, you know, that's likable, right? Having a guy stop bullies. I don't know if you can get much more likable than that. You know, so I did that. I submitted it to outside sources. I think I submitted it to subreddits as well, and, you know, just tried to get an understanding of why the people might not be liking it. You know, and I adjusted the story and changed a few things, changed the main character. And after 2 years, I finally got enough motivation to publish the new story and start things over again. And you know what these little fuckers on this story did? They disliked it more than they ever had. And of course, nobody said why they were doing it. And at this point, I was just livid with anger. I'm like, come on. You know, I mean, that scene from Legally Blonde comes in. I'm never going to be good enough for you, am I? Because it's like, what do you want from me? You know, you complain that the main character's not likable, so I make him likable, and you're still not happy. You complain that the main character talks to themselves, so I make him not talk himself, and you're still not happy. And I don't even know why. I mean, I think, again, I tried opening up in the author's notes and attempting to get some sympathy. I think I opened up about why I was writing it, who the main character was supposed to be. I think one person commented some small shred of support, but everyone else basically ignored and kept disliking. So that's a really good thing to do. I mean, again, perpetuating the message they were sending when I tried opening up about it before, and they just doubled down on the dislikes that we don't care, and we never will. I think at this point, too, I made a series of blog posts kind of calling out this behavior, because it's like, come on. You know, I'm sick of being treated like garbage as an author. I put all this time and effort into stuff, and I don't deserve to be treated this way. And nobody does. I mean, fuck, authors work hard on their shit. Don't disrespect them by dislike bombing their works to the point where no one will read them, and then not even say why, so they have a fair chance to understand why you don't like it and what they can do to change it. And the fact that it was personal, and you knew it was personal, and you insisted on doing this anyway, makes it that much worse. And I was just getting tired of being ignored. Like, I mean, I kept saying how much this was bothering me, and everyone just kept ignoring me and dislike bombing. It's like just ignoring everything I was saying, not offering any support, and just dislike bombing. And I mean, maybe I got a little bit, you know, aggro here, but let's be real. Like, I was just fucking done with their shit. You know, I was done with it already, but the fact that it's just a perpetuation of shit that I dealt with my entire life just makes it that much worse. And eventually it came to a head when I think I made a post saying, I'm thinking of leaving this site because I feel like I'm not being respected. I feel like I work hard on these stories and nobody really appreciates the effort I put into them. No one listens to me when I say, please don't do this. No one respects the effort I put in. They just treat me like absolute garbage, and I'm tired of being treated like that. And I'm thinking of leaving because of this. And 80 people saw that, and not one of them had the common courtesy to offer any emotional support. 80 people, and not even one of them can say, I'm sorry you went through that. You didn't deserve that. What the hell's with you hating on him? Leave him alone. Nothing. And I think I was about to give up, but then I saw a video I wish I hadn't, where they said, like, you shouldn't give up on something because that's the coward's way out. Like, you're never going to make it better if you give up. Kind of, I guess an analogy is if the Titanic's sinking, you shouldn't stop bailing because then the ship will just go down for sure, whereas maybe you can bail enough to save it. Yeah, and I mean, I think really what I wish I'd have thought of this differently, because it's sort of like the Brony Fandom is like the Titanic, and it's never going to get better unless you bail it out, but it's a ship that's too far gone. The water's already flooding onto the first funnel. It's going down. At that point, it's better to save yourself than try and waste time and effort and go down with the ship, trying to save something that doesn't want to be saved. I mean, at that point, the Titanic wants to sink. It's too heavy. You're not going to stop it. And if you sit there trying to stop it, you're going to get sucked down with it and end up dying, at least in a symbolic sense. So yeah, I mean, I kept going, and eventually I just, I think what ended up happening was I just got tired of their bullshit. I got tired of their shit where they treated me, ignoring me, treating me like shit, ignoring my requests, not offering me any support, never telling me what was wrong, just treating me like I didn't even matter. And I made a blog post calling them out and saying, I'm done with this fucking shit. I listed several points what they did with it was wrong. I said, you know what, I mean, this might seem egotistical, but I said I was better than them, kind of for my own benefit, just to say I didn't deserve to be treated this way. And I think I am, because I listed several things. I said, what do you guys do with your spare time? You go around and dislike bomb stories of people that are hurting, and they're hurting, you don't give a shit. Like, who does that? And what do I do with my spare time? I basically go around and I play TF2. And yeah, I admittedly said that's not the most productive use of my time, but at least it's not hurting anybody. I'm not fucking actually hurting people by doing things that I know they fucking hate just to be a fucking asshole like they were. And I also said, when people post things saying that they're bothered by something in a blog post and it's very clear that they're hurting, I actually fucking offer emotional support. And unlike you, where 80 of you saw it and none of you even fucking had anything to say. I also criticized them in that post saying, despite me asking multiple times, you couldn't even provide basic reasons why you were doing what you were doing. And instead just kept at it. And I'm like, well, at least if I don't like something and the person asks me why I don't like it, I'll explain it. But even then, I won't go out of my way to dislike bomb something I minorly dislike because I dislike it. I'll just leave it at that and leave the person alone, because I will respect the effort that they put into the story enough to say they don't deserve to have their reputation destroyed just because. They deserve to understand why people don't like them if they're going to be treated like that. So, and yet you seem to have no problem just not even explaining yourself and continuing along this path. And I said it's kind of suspicious too that you don't freaking actually say why you don't like the stories because if you had a real reason, why wouldn't you post it? It's sort of suspicious to me. I think I also jokingly said they quack like a duck because they suck and I don't suck, because I was obsessed with the mic spamming bots that said that in TF2 at the time. I'm not going to say I behaved perfectly, but I mean, come on. I never felt like I was respected. I never felt like these people treated me at all decently the whole time I was on this fucking site. I felt like I was treated like absolute shit, and I was tired of it. I'm getting mad just thinking about it, because it's the perpetuation of the same shit I've dealt with my entire life, where people just treat me like dirt and they don't even say why. And here I am opening up about how much it sucks, and they're doing it again. Like, come on, show some fucking respect, for God's sake. You want people to be respectful to you, you got to be respectful to them too. You can't just shit on their damn work and ignore their basic requests saying, please don't dislike this. Just leave the story and leave it at that if you don't like what you see, but don't go out of your way to dislike, because it bothers me. If you can't even do that much, and you dislike it just to spite them, like, why should I be respectful to you? You haven't earned that. And at this point, several of these scumbags came out of the woodwork and said some really shitty shit to me. And one of them said, don't let the door hit you on the way out, and accused me of being toxic. of course, would not provide any backup for their statement when I said, why do you think I'm toxic? So again, it's sort of suspicious. It's sort of, this and other things make me think they were just someone who liked to spew big words to try and appeal to people's emotions and get them to ignore logic. So really shitty thing to say in general too. I mean, clearly I was at the end of my rope. You don't need to say shit like that. There was also someone else who said, oh, you're a drama queen. And I called them out like, no, I'm not. And they basically said, you've got what you fucking deserve. Like anyone deserves to be treated that poorly, where they're completely rejected and ignored about something that's very personal to them. No one deserves that fucking shit. Another basically accused my stories of being unreadable due to being riddled with grammar errors. Yeah, right. I check it with Google Docs and they didn't see multiple problems with it. So why do you, someone who knowingly admitted that English wasn't their first language, have authority over a fucking spell checker program? And I bring that up because it's like, English isn't even your first language. Who are you to fucking say that this story is written poorly when you don't even grow up with English? It's like me trying to be an authority on fucking Conway's Game of Life when, yeah, I like it, but I'm not like obsessed with it like some people are. So who am I to fucking tell them what's what? You know, at least I recognize that. He also basically posted a comment ripping the stories apart, accusing them of being cringe, and just basically just trying to do his best to get me to give up writing under the guise of criticism, when really it was hate. They also used some of the same fucking arguments I knew they'd use. One of them accused me of not taking criticism. You're a very incorrect, asshole, because first of all, I literally edited my story based on what people said they thought about it. So that is the definition of taking criticism. Second of all, what they did was not criticism. It was hate. They went out of their way to vote bomb all of my stories and didn't even say why. At that point, that's not criticism, because you have to actually say what you don't like about something for it to qualify as criticism. That is hate. And I am within my rights to call out hate when I see it, because that is toxic behavior and should not be tolerated. I also find it interesting that you accused someone else who tried to hold you accountable by posting a Yelp-style review of what you did and said on that blog post where I was clearly hurting, and call you out for it as harassing you, when you had no problem with the people who went out of their way to ignore my wishes when I said this is very personal and what you're doing is hurting me, so please stop it. That's harassment. You know, I said stop doing this and you kept on doing it despite me saying this multiple times. That's the textbook definition of fucking harassment. And you're okay with that, but you're not okay with someone trying to hold you accountable? Hypocrite much. One of the guy who tore the stories apart with grammar also was a fucking asshole who expected me as an author to read the minds of the readers and understand why they didn't like it. And, you know, just complete bullshit. And you want to know what another thing these prick bronies did when I posted my blog post saying how I was being hurt and this was affecting my mental health? Several of them accused me, at least one of them accused me of faking it just so I could get a pass on criticism, and said it was sad or some shit like that. Hopefully you can hear from this video I'm not faking anything. And I also think that's pretty disgusting to try and paint me again as the bad guy when clearly the antagonists in the situations are the people who knew what they were doing was bugging me and went out of their way to do it anyways, and just went out of their way to dislike anyways regardless, when people have worked so hard on their stories and they don't even give them a chance to defend themselves by actually saying what's wrong. I also think it's pretty disgusting that you would just automatically jump to accusing someone of faking it. Like, fuck you. Like, seriously. I mean, I wonder if that might not have played a role in what was going on, too, because none of the other ones said anything. Big shock there. The Brony Fandom is really great at not saying what they need to. But, you know, it does make me wonder if they didn't just jump to the conclusion that I was faking it, which I'm not. I also love how one of them said that no one's entitled to have someone respond to their post as if that's something that you should hold as law. I mean, sure. I guess on a technical level, they're right. I'm not entitled to have someone reply to a post saying how much I've been hurt. But at the same time, I don't like people who are going to try to act like that's completely fine when obviously, well, it's legal. It's not the moral high ground even by the slightest. I mean, it's like slow rolling in poker. Sure, it's not illegal to slow roll somebody. The cops aren't going to come into the casino and arrest you if you do it. But it's very bad etiquette to do so. And if you're going to try to justify that as being completely acceptable in I guess, ideal behavior, that says a lot about you as a person. And it's the same thing with this. All of them, too, combined, just had this fucking mentality that the reader was super important and to be held on a pedestal, and the author was there to be their little servant or something. You know, the reader could treat the author like shit, and the author wasn't supposed to take a stand against them, because if they did, they were automatically the bad guy. You know, I mean, hopefully you can agree, the people on there treated me like shit and never at any point respected me or my wishes, and yet they're sitting there defending these assholes and enabling the fuck out of them as if I was wrong for having a problem with it. You know, it's just they're fucking assholes. One of them also went off on someone else. I think they deleted it like a coward, but they accused me of claiming to be a hero for kicking bots in TF2. I'm not claiming to be a hero for kicking bots in TF2. I was simply saying, unlike you, I actually don't fucking go out of my way to hurt people by dislike bombing stories when I know it bothers the person. I actually do productive things with my time, even if it's small shit. Way to take what I said out of context. Another one accused me of trying to be a hero by making the character likable and stopping a bully. So it's sort of like, again, what's good enough for you? You bitch when the character's not likable. You bitch when he is. What do you want? You know? Oh, yeah. And on top of all fucking scumbag commenters, what I have to say is 5 or 6 of these little irredeemable losers, for lack of a better term, because that's really what they were, after reading that post, went to each and every one of my stories and hit dislike. Every single one of my stories got a crop of 5 or 6 dislikes after that post. What a bunch of fucking assholes. You knew how much this bothered me, and you went out of your way to do this to fucking spite me. Grow the fuck up. My fucking God, I hate this fandom. I fucking hate them. And it's like no cause and effect. Everyone just accused me of being so terrible. And I kept explaining, I'm only angry because I was treated like shit for years. You know, that's what happens when you treat someone like shit for years. They resent it, and eventually it reaches a boiling point. And they refuse to even hear me out on that. They refused to even consider the possibility that their precious fandom wasn't perfect, and I was the bad guy for daring to start trouble. Yeah, right. Hopefully people viewing this can understand that going out of your way to dislike bomb a story in general is just scumbag behavior. Because again, they've worked hard on it. Fucking show them some basic respect. And the fact that I said it was personal makes it that much worse. And you're trying to defend this as if I'm wrong for having a problem with being treated that way. Like, what the fuck? And I think the real kicker too is I'm pretty sure that this was based on prejudice. I mean, I can't be 100% sure because none of them ever came out and said I'm a prejudiced fucker. Of course, whoever says that in general. But someone else I know on there who's also openly identified as disabled was treated a similar way. And there were stories about trans characters that were vote bombed as well. And I know that the fandom as a whole has a fucking hard-on for hating trans people, because I'll link a video in the description. Go about halfway through, they'll tell you about how they opened up as being trans, and the Brony Fandom was among their most avid haters. Is it really too much of a stretch to think that people that are still dumb enough to think that way in this day and age would be dumb enough to fucking hate people based on the fact that they're disabled and nothing else? This is exactly the same shit I faced when I was a kid, and people just basically united and said, we don't want you playing with our kids. They ignored me, they ostracized me, they treated me like garbage, and it's the same fucking shit. All because I was disabled and different. And it's the same fucking shit that I dealt with on this fandom, which kind of makes me think it's rooted in the same fucking origin of hate. I mean, and also I have to make a special mention to the mods of the site too. You know, I really love how I made an update in all of my stories, letting people who actually were interested know that I was quitting and why I was quitting. And you removed it from every single story. You removed those chapters and made it so people couldn't view them because apparently they broke some site rule. You know, which they kind of did, but at the same time, why are you okay with people vote bombing other people's stories and saying heartless shit like, don't let the door hit you on the way out, you deserve what you got when someone's blog is clearly hurting? Like, really nice priorities there. So you allow that behavior, but when someone fucking writes one single chapter in an otherwise on-topic story that just is informing the readers that they're quitting and why you remove it. I mean, who the fuck are you? So yeah, that's my fucking experience with the Brony fandom. My fucking God. You know, and the sad thing is I wanted to be a part of you assholes. I wanted to be respected. I wanted to contribute to your fandom. But I just can't. I can't even watch the show, and I can't even write anymore after all the fucking hate I dealt with and mistreatment. And I really am impressed because I have never met a group of less sympathetic, less likable, more toxic, and just all around less redeemable people than you. I mean, really, I can't think of a single thing that I would consider redeemable about the majority of the people I interacted with on that site. I mean, going out of your way to say don't let the door hit you on your way out when someone's clearly hurting, that's not redeemable. Fucking saying they deserved it when someone's clearly hurting and has been treated like shit, that's not redeemable. Fucking bashing someone's story and saying they write like shit based on faulty reasons, that's not redeemable. Sitting back and watching others do this and either saying nothing or going out of your way to dislike bomb a story because you know it bothers them, that's not redeemable. Imagine doing that when someone's opening their heart up about being traumatized and excluded. Like, how fucking selfish can you be? Fuck the Brony fandom. Fuck them hard. I would have been so much better off if I'd never tried to interact with them. I mean, admittedly, offline encounters weren't as bad, but they still were not fulfilling. I still felt like I wasn't really respected properly. I suppose I can go into that in another video. I don't know how I follow up this with a minor thing. It's sort of like saying, hey, I'm with the FBI, and someone else says, hey, I'm with the county circuit court. That doesn't really follow up that well. But hopefully you can see why I hate this fandom and why I recommend wholeheartedly that you avoid it. If you are going through a rough time, they will not sympathize with you. They will not respect you. They will not help you through it. They will treat you like shit, and if you are different, they will make sure that you know that you are not and never will be welcomed among their ranks. If you want sympathy, they won't give you sympathy. If you want empathy, they won't give you empathy. If you want someone to just fucking give you a shoulder to cry on, they won't do that. And if you want someone that you can vent to about the shit you've been through at the hands of others, they won't do that either. Because instead, they'll try to make it about them and why your perception is wrong and why you're overreacting. Jesus. This was a rant, but it needed to be said. Fuck the Brony fandom and fuck everyone in it who acted like that. And fuck everyone in it who sat back and knew this was happening and didn't say or do anything against the people responsible for it. You're just as bad as they are. Enabling is just as bad as fucking doing the shit yourself in situations like this. If any one of you had fucking spoken up and said you need to leave him alone or you didn't deserve that, they wouldn't have heard as much. At least I would have known I wasn't alone, but no. It was everyone against Victor, and I am so sick of being put in that situation in my life and not even knowing why. And I mean, yeah, you know, I probably could have handled it a bit better, but let's be real. After years of the same shit and you opening up to vent about it and being treated exactly the same way yet again, you'd be fucking fed up with it too. I know you would. You know, it's like trying to open up about how you're ignored in a fucking support group and they just ignore you. Or they open up about past traumas and they start bitching about how it's cliched or something and make it all about them and their entertainment with your story. It's like, my God, how damaging can you be? How selfish can you be? How just completely irredeemable in every way possible can you as a person be? And again, I'm going to sandwich this by saying not all bronies are like this, but as I said before in the beginning of the video, enough of them are. And just because a few members aren't, you know, are actually decent or aren't complete assholes doesn't mean that I should forgive or excuse or not address the major quantity of them who are and made me go through that fucking hell at a time when I really just was not needing that. Like, no one ever needs that, but especially when I'm already hurting. Come on, why do you have to add to the fuel to the damn fire? It's just so terrible.